They told her to leave, said she wasn't the type they served, mocked her for daring to withdraw just $500. A plain-looking woman, no designer bag, no jewelry, clearly not worth their time. But less than an hour later, the bank's marble floor trembled under the weight of silence as the glass doors swung open, and in walked a man with fire in his eyes and power in his stride. No one recognized him at first, not until he said, with chilling calm, "I'm here for my wife." And in that moment, everything began to unravel. All because they didn't realize who she was until her billionaire husband walked in, a gentle-looking woman with soft eyes, wearing a modest blouse and faded jeans, pushed open the heavy glass doors of Sterling Sky Bank. It was the kind of bank that boasted marble columns, crystal chandeliers, and uniformed guards who stood a little too straight. The moment she stepped inside, an uneasy hush fell over the lobby. Not because she looked suspicious. She was just too simple for a place draped in opulence. Her name was Laura. She was there for a simple transaction, but what she got was a humiliating experience that would make her question everything she knew about dignity and kindness. "Excuse me," she said politely to the security guard near the entrance. "Where can I withdraw money from my account?" She had no idea that a single sentence could trigger so many sneers. The guard, a broad man in his early 40s, gave her a once-over and shrugged. "ATMs are to the left, ma'am, but I think you might have come to the wrong branch. This one's for VIP clients mostly." His voice wasn't outright hostile, but it dripped with condescension. Laura felt a small tightening in her chest. She was sure she had the right branch. This was the main branch of Sterling Sky, and in all the ads she'd seen, they never mentioned any exclusive policy. Still, she gave the guard a little nod and walked further in, determined not to let him scare her off. She approached the teller desks, noting how shiny the counters were, how the employees all wore matching suits with subtle silver pins on their lapels. The first teller, a young woman with perfectly styled hair and a name tag that read Christina, looked up with a smile that vanished in an instant when she saw Laura's outfit. Laura cleared her throat and tried to keep her voice steady. "I'd like to make a withdrawal." Christina lifted an eyebrow. "Sure, ma'am. Our minimum withdrawal from the desk is $10,000. Anything below that, we generally direct to the ATM." Laura blinked. She only needed a few $100s to pay a handyman who only accepted cash. She didn't carry large sums around, but she did need some physical bills that day. "Actually, I just need $500, she said softly. And there it was, the first real blow. Christina let out a scoff so loud that a couple of other tellers glanced over, smirking. "500? Christina repeated, making sure everyone within earshot could hear. "Ma'am, we reserve in-person transactions for VIP clients. Typically, those who maintain a certain balance or who are withdrawing significant funds." Laura felt her cheeks grow hot. "I have more than enough in my account. Is there a reason I can't withdraw $500 here?" Christina shrugged, turning slightly to address another teller. "Says she has more than enough in her account." The other teller, a tall man named Robert, snickered, but pretended to be busy typing. At that moment, Laura's patience began to fray. She was used to some level of condescension. She dressed simply, her hair was not freshly styled, and she wore no fancy jewelry. But her mother had always taught her that people should never be judged by appearances. Standing in that polished bank lobby, she suddenly felt like the butt of an unfunny joke. "Is there a manager I can speak to?" she asked, trying to keep her composure. Christina rolled her eyes. "Of course, but I'm sure he'll tell you the same thing." She pressed a button on her desk phone. After a few moments, out stepped Henry, the floor manager, a middle-aged man with silver hair and a tailored suit that screamed expense. He strolled over, giving Laura the kind of look one might reserve for an intruder. "I'm Henry, the manager here. Is there a problem?" Laura explained, carefully. She wanted to withdraw a modest amount. The staff kept insisting the ATM was the better option, but she didn't mind waiting in line. She just wanted the cash from her account. "Ma'am, Our bank prides itself on efficiency, Henry replied. We have an ATM specifically for smaller transactions. Our in-person desks are dedicated to clients with elevated needs. The way he drew out elevated made it clear that she was below whatever standard they had. Laura felt an urge to defend herself, maybe mention the actual figure in her bank account, but something held her back. She didn't think one should have to prove their worth just to withdraw a small sum. Fine, she said softly, mustering a polite smile. I'll just use the ATM. Henry gave her a tight nod. It's located down the hallway. Take the second left. As Laura stepped away, she heard Christina's not-so-soft whisper. Some people just can't understand how things work around here. Laura's ears burned, but she kept going, determined to handle her business and leave. She made her way to the ATM area, passing an ornate hallway with framed awards on the wall. Sterling Skybank apparently boasted record-breaking profits, philanthropic endeavors, and VIP programs. Laura read a plaque about how they prided themselves on serving every client with the utmost respect. She almost laughed at the irony. When she got to the ATM nook, she found it roped off, sporting a handwritten sign that read, "Out of order. Please use main lobby." Her heart sank. She gazed back down the long corridor, realizing she'd have to return and probably endure more sneering. She breathed in, trying to summon courage, then turned around and headed back. The moment she re-entered the main lobby, a few heads swiveled in her direction. She approached Christina's desk again. Your ATM is out of service, she said quietly, bracing herself. Christina exchanged a glance with Robert, who was now openly staring. Then she looked back at Laura. That's unfortunate. You can always try the branch uptown. Laura's jaw tightened. I need the cash now. You can withdraw it, right? I mean, this is my bank. Henry stepped forward again, a frown etched into his face. We typically don't process such small withdrawals in person, especially not for walk-in clients. That last phrase stung. She wasn't a walk-in. She'd had this account for 3 years. She clenched her teeth, trying not to snap. I'm not a walk-in. I have an account here. My husband also has a significant account with your bank. Henry gave her a withering stare. Ma'am, we handle accounts with monthly average balances in the millions. Are you certain you and your husband have that sort of relationship with us? The humiliation pressed down on her chest like a weight. She had never thrown around her husband's net worth. She wasn't that kind of person. Yet she found herself caught in this situation where defending her own dignity required revealing details she never thought she'd need to. Her voice trembled slightly. I just need $500, and I'd prefer if you could kindly process that. Henry sighed, as if deeply inconvenienced. Christina, see if we can locate her account. What's your account number, ma'am? Laura rattled it off. Christina pulled up the details, eyes scanning the screen. At first, her look was bored. Then it shifted. She nudged Robert, leaning closer to him so Laura couldn't see the monitor. Robert's eyes went wide for a moment. Then he smirked. Oh, interesting, he whispered, but Henry cleared his throat. All right, let's see. He walked around to look. Well, your account is under Laura Daniels. Our system shows a moderate balance. He paused, glancing at something on the screen. And there's a note here referencing another linked account under your husband's name, Thomas Daniels, but it's not fully accessible from your login. He sounded almost disappointed that there was at least some sign of wealth. Ma'am, would you mind waiting over there? Henry nodded toward a couch near the entrance, plush and designed for more well-dressed clients, but currently empty. Laura, too tired to argue, shuffled over and sat down, feeling more like a scolded child than a paying customer. Minutes dragged by. She could hear bits of conversation from behind the desks, words like, ridiculous, why does she need it anyway? And we can't just cater to every random person who walks in. Her stomach churned. She wanted to leave, but also didn't want to bow to their arrogance. She had every right to withdraw money from her account. She was about to stand up and confront them one last time when a tall, angular woman with perfect posture strode in. The nameplate pinned to her blouse read, Alicia, Customer Relations Manager. She walked over to the couch and gave Laura the same dismissive once-over. "I've been informed you're requesting an in-person withdrawal for a small amount," Alicia said, as though reading from a script. "Unfortunately, our policy states that smaller transactions should be handled via ATM or through our online platform." Laura tried to hide her trembling hands. "Your ATM is broken. I only need $500 in cash. This is my bank. Can you not help me?" Alicia's eyes flickered with annoyance. "We are extremely busy accommodating our VIP clients. Processing a mere $500 withdrawal disrupts our workflow. If you had a private banking account at our bank, the staff would be more than happy to assist. But as it stands..." She trailed off, letting the thought hang. Laura felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She'd never experienced such blatant classism. She rummaged in her purse, intending to prove she had enough in her checking account. But what could she show them that would matter? She didn't carry statements, and everything was digital now. Just then, Robert walked up with a snide grin. "You could always ask your husband, right? If he has this big account with us, maybe he can just wire you the money. Save us all the trouble." That was the moment something in Laura cracked. She stood up, squared her shoulders, and fixed him with a steady glare. "Fine," she whispered. "I will call my husband." The entire staff seemed to share a smug chuckle. Henry tried to mask his grin behind a cough. Alicia simply turned on her heel and walked away, tapping her watch as though every second was precious. Laura slipped her phone out and stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. She felt humiliated, as though everything about her was worthless in their eyes. She dialed her husband's number, struggling to keep her composure as she explained the situation in hushed tones. Thomas Daniels was traveling for a meeting that day, a big one involving international investors. He was the last person she wanted to bother with something like this. But as soon as he heard the tremor in her voice, he asked, "Laura, what's going on? Who's disrespecting you?" She took a shaky breath. "It's not a big deal. I just needed some cash, but they're treating me like I don't belong. They won't give it to me. The ATM is broken. They keep telling me I'm not a VIP. I asked to speak to the manager, but..." She broke off, swallowing the lump in her throat. Thomas was silent for a moment. "Which branch is this?" he asked calmly. She told him, and he said, "Stay right there. Give me a little time." She had no idea what Thomas was planning. She knew he was wealthy, significantly so, but he usually kept a low profile, preferring to maintain a modest lifestyle. The staff at this bank had no clue they were trifling with a man whose net worth soared past the multi-billion mark. Laura paced outside, her phone clenched in her hand. She peered inside and saw Alicia shaking her head at Henry, as though Laura was some nuisance. Eventually, feeling a bit calmer, she re-entered the lobby, only to be greeted by Christina's smug grin. "Back so soon? Did your husband say he's not available to bail you out?" That was the final straw. Laura felt the sting of tears again, but she refused to cry. She just shook her head, bit her lip, and sat back down on that plush couch, refusing to move. The guard from earlier ambled over. "Ma'am, if you're not conducting business, we're going to have to ask you to leave." Laura gave him a weary glance. "I am conducting business. I'm waiting for my husband to confirm something," he shrugged. "Suit yourself." The minutes ticked by in excruciating silence. Staff went about their tasks, occasionally shooting her mocking or curious looks. A couple of actual VIP clients strode in, greeted by wide smiles and fresh cappuccinos from the fancy espresso machine. One man in an expensive suit had a transaction that must have been huge, because Henry was practically bowing to him. Another woman, dripping with designer accessories, was ushered into a private lounge without so much as a second glance at Laura. It was like watching an alternate reality unfold around her, a world where money talked louder than basic respect. Then, without warning, the bank doors flew open. In walked a trio of sharply dressed men in suits. They looked official, each carrying a briefcase. Henry's eyes lit up, probably mistaking them for some corporate auditors or high-net-worth clients. He hurried forward to greet them. Laura noticed something peculiar. Each man wore a small pin shaped like a hawk's head, the emblem of her husband's private security firm, Raptor Guard. Her heart started pounding. Meanwhile, Henry was all smiles. "Gentlemen, welcome to Sterling Sky. How can we assist you?" The man in front, tall with silver hair, stared Henry down. "We're here on behalf of Mr. Thomas Daniels. Please direct us to your main conference room. We have urgent business to discuss." Christina, Robert, Alicia, everyone froze. Henry stuttered, "Mr. Daniels, is he coming too?" "Is he?" Before anyone could answer, the doors swung open again. This time, Thomas Daniels himself walked in. He wasn't wearing a typical business suit. He had on a collared shirt with the sleeves rolled up, a tie undone around his neck, as though he'd left a meeting in a hurry. The usual calm warmth in his eyes was replaced by a cold fury. Laura bolted up from the couch, relief flooding her, but she also felt anxious. The tension in the air was so thick it could suffocate them all. Thomas walked straight to her. "You all right?" he asked softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She nodded, her heart aching with gratitude that he cared so much. He turned around to face the entire lobby. "Who's in charge here?" His voice carried the unmistakable authority of someone used to being in command. Henry stepped forward cautiously. "I'm the floor manager. How can I help?" Thomas's jaw tightened. "You can start by explaining why my wife was denied a withdrawal from her account." Henry tried to conjure up a diplomatic smile. "Sir, we have policies in place that require certain transaction amounts for in-person services. We direct smaller transactions to ATMs, but the machine is temporarily out of order, so we advised your wife to visit a different branch." Thomas pressed his lips together, as though holding back a storm. "So you refused to give her her own money?" Alicia, who had sidled up behind Henry, piped in. "We have protocols, sir. We cater to VIP clients, people who maintain large balances and conduct significant transactions. We can't possibly serve every smaller request in person. We'd be swamped." Thomas flicked his gaze over her, his voice dropping an octave. "You do realize who I am, don't you?" Alicia tried to keep her composure. "Mr. Daniels, we're aware you have an account with us, but we don't typically handle trivial amounts like $500 at our VIP desks." Thomas's expression hardened. "Trivial. Interesting choice of words." He glanced at Laura, who was trembling slightly, recalling how they'd belittled her. Then he faced Henry, Alicia, Christina, and Robert, who were huddled together like guilty conspirators. "My wife came here, politely requested to withdraw $500. You belittled her, insulted her, and made her feel unwelcome. Is that correct?" No one dared to speak, but their silence was answer enough. Thomas nodded once to the trio of suited men who had arrived before him. One of them stepped forward, opening a sleek black briefcase. He pulled out several documents, handing them to Thomas. Thomas scanned them quickly, then looked at Henry. "I'm terminating all my accounts with Sterling Sky Bank, effective immediately. That includes my personal accounts, my business accounts, and all affiliated trust funds. We'll also be pulling out the entire investment portfolio we had parked here. Last we checked, it was around $2 billion, give or take a few million." A collective gasp rippled through the lobby. Alicia's eyes widened in sheer horror. Robert dropped the pen he was fidgeting with. Christina actually mouthed the words, $2 billion, as though she couldn't believe it. Henry's face lost all color. He quickly tried to salvage the situation. "Mr. Daniels, there must be some misunderstanding. We value you and your wife's patronage. We simply have certain guidelines." Thomas cut him off, handing the papers to him. These are instructions to close every single account under my name, my spouse's name, and any shell corporations or affiliates I control. I'll move the funds somewhere they actually respect their clients." Henry's hands shook as he took the papers, scanning them frantically. Alicia, realizing the magnitude of the crisis, tried to step in. "Sir, we can rectify this. We can issue an immediate apology, process any withdrawal your wife wants, even in a private lounge." Thomas shook his head slowly. "An apology after the fact doesn't erase the humiliation you put her through. You judged her by her appearance, made her feel small. That's not a bank I want to do business with." By now, every staff member in sight looked like they were either about to faint or cry. Henry attempted one last desperate tactic. "We can talk to our regional director and see if we can arrange a special courtesy. This bank has been proud to call you a client for years." Thomas breathed out a humorless laugh. "Funny way of showing it. My wife was left feeling worthless, thanks to your staff. I'll have the courtesy of paying the penalty fees for withdrawing my funds ahead of any maturity date, because frankly, money matters less to me than my wife's dignity." Alicia placed a trembling hand on Henry's shoulder, as if silently begging him to fix this, but it was already too late. The security guard from earlier hovered in the background, looking stunned and uneasy. He had no illusions about trying to escort them out now. One of Thomas's security men stepped forward with a phone to his ear, nodding. "Sir, the wire transfers are ready. Just need your final signature." Thomas looked at Laura. "Honey, do you want to sign off on it? Or should I?" Laura hesitated, still reeling from the shock of how everything escalated. She glanced at the staff, saw the fear in their eyes. Part of her felt pity for them. Losing a $2 billion deposit would surely cause chaos in the bank's management. But then she remembered how they'd laughed in her face, how they'd basically told her she wasn't worth the effort. She reached out and took the pen. "I'll sign," she said, her voice steady, a quiet resolution shining in her eyes. They guided her to a side table, and she scribbled her name. In that moment, all the arrogance and sneers from the staff melted into panic and desperation. Henry tried to conjure some last-minute solution. Robert looked like he wanted to disappear. Christina fiddled with her nails, no longer so confident. Alicia actually attempted to place a gentle hand on Laura's arm. "Ma'am, please, there's no need for such drastic measures. We can fix this. Laura pulled away softly, that same gracious manner she'd shown from the start. She didn't even have to speak. Her expression said it all. "You had your chance to treat me decently." Thomas signed the final documents, then turned back to face Henry. "We'll arrange a press statement regarding the withdrawal. We won't mention specifics, but if the story of how your staff treat customers leaks out, you can be sure it won't reflect well on Sterling Sky Bank." Henry's lips parted, but no sound came out. He was probably imagining the calls he'd get from higher-ups, the meltdown of their precious VIP brand. Thomas nodded to his security detail, and they began collecting the documents, packing them neatly. Laura gave one last glance at the staff who had sneered at her. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over her: anger, sadness, a trace of vindication, but mostly relief that she could walk out of there with her head held high. They made their way toward the exit. Clients in the waiting area, sensing the tension, parted like the Red Sea. One or two recognized Thomas from business magazines, and their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. Laura heard hushed whispers and felt the weight of countless stares. But it didn't matter anymore. She clutched Thomas's arm, grateful for his unwavering support. Right as they reached the door, Christina called out weakly, "Ma'am, I'm sorry." It was a feeble attempt at damage control. Laura paused, just for a second, looking over her shoulder. Instead of snapping or boasting, she simply gave a small, polite nod, then walked out. No more words were needed. The final blow had already fallen. Outside, the sun felt warmer than usual on Laura's face. She took in a deep breath, blinking away the last traces of tears. Thomas turned to her, his eyes gentler now. "You okay?" She nodded, slowly. "I'm sorry I bothered you during your big meeting." He shrugged. "There's nothing bigger than standing up for you when you're disrespected." She smiled, touched by his sincerity. "I can't believe you're actually pulling $2 billion out." He gave a faint grin. "I can always invest that money somewhere else." "But your sense of worth? That's priceless." Laura leaned her head against his shoulder for a moment, letting relief wash over her. Then she pulled away, eyes shining. "Let's just go home. Maybe we can stop by a local bank's ATM on the way." He laughed, and she felt the tension evaporate. In the days that followed, news spread like wildfire. Though Thomas hadn't planned to make a spectacle, rumors leaked. Some staff at the bank must have talked. Soon, financial forums and local business pages buzzed with the story of a simple-dressed woman refused service at Sterling Sky only for her billionaire husband to yank $2 billion from their vaults. Some her readers cheered, seeing it as poetic justice. Others thought it was an urban legend. But within the bank, panic reigned. Henry was demoted under suspicion of mishandling a VIP account. Alicia, Robert, and Christina all faced disciplinary reviews and pay cuts. The entire branch was put on notice to undergo customer sensitivity training. As for Laura, she never bragged or gloated. She still preferred her modest clothes, and she still believed in giving everyone a fair chance. She and Thomas found a new bank, one that treated them with respect from day one. No questions asked, no assumptions. Whenever she needed a small withdrawal, she walked in, greeted the staff with a friendly smile, and was treated like any valuable customer should be. Enjoyed listening? Show this video some love with a like. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share it with anyone who needs a reminder about genuine respect. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that bring a satisfying twist. See you next time.